Hi everyone and welcome to Fresh from My Garden. This is the Adenium plant from my parents' garden and these are flowering really beautifully and I have previously shared a video on plant care tips for Adenium plants. Adenium, also known as desert rose, is a beautiful flowering plant that can be grown into a bonsai and in containers like this, and it will grow really well. And once the plant starts to mature, these plants will produce seed pods. They grow well in spots that receive a lot of sunlight and requires very little watering since the roots of the plants hold up a lot of moisture or water and will rot very quickly if overwatered. These plants produce seed pods from which we can harvest a lot of seeds that we can grow into new plants. So, there are a variety of colors in which these adenium plants grow, and I have previously grown a few adenium plants from seeds. This is a plant that I grew in my garden from a few seeds saved from another plant, and this is planted in a very small container, and this is growing really well. And this year, this plant has produced seed pods from which I can save seeds and grow new plants. Adenium plant forms seeds during the summer season and mostly once the plant matures. So here you can see the seed pod which is still green and it is not ready for harvest yet. This plant is really small but it was grown from seed a few years back and it hasn't grown very big since it is growing in a very small pot. The seed pod, just like other flowering plants, forms once the flower has been spent, and this seed pod takes a few months for it to mature and dry completely before we can harvest any seeds from it. During this time, we need to make sure that this plant doesn't receive too much of rain or excess water, which will cause these seed pods to start rotting and decay. There are two seed pods that grow side by side on an adenium plant, and now this seed pod has split open, revealing the seeds inside. These seeds are really light and can get easily scattered by the wind if we do not harvest them very carefully. And every seed pod contains a lot of seeds from which we can grow new adenium plants. This was one seed pod that I had not noticed was drying up really quickly and it popped open and the seeds were ready for harvest. But usually, whenever the seed pods are formed and are starting to dry up, we need to carefully tie them up so that these seeds don't get scattered by the wind and they will all stay inside the pod until we harvest them. So here I am tying up the seed pod loosely with a piece of thread so that once the seed pod dries up and splits open, the seeds are not scattered away by the wind and they remain inside the pod until it is ready to be harvested. So now here you can see that the seed pod had started to split up, but there was another seed pod from which I had earlier saved seeds. I have this dried seed pod of Adenium from which I am saving the seeds, and these seeds are going to be planted in a few containers. This is a seed pod that I saved previously, and this is from my parents' garden. And this pod has a lot of seeds that I'm going to be planting today. I have used a mixture of garden soil with some coco peat, compost, and some fungicide in the soil into which I'm going to be planting this. So place the seeds loosely on top of the soil, but as we are sowing the seeds, make sure that they don't fly away because of the wind. These seeds are really light and they can quickly get carried away by the wind. So we need to be careful while planting these seeds. So I'm planting these seeds and loosely covering them up with soil, and I have a few containers since there were a lot of seeds that were harvested. Place this in a spot where it receives some bright light and a lot of air circulation, and in a few days you will start to see these seedlings pop up from the soil. After a few months of growth, these saplings can be carefully transplanted into different containers. So, this is our video on adenium care and also how to grow lots of adenium plants from seed pods that grow in your garden. Please do watch our channel for regular garden updates and plant care tips, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching Fresh from My Garden.